DOGE might be the new kid on the block, but some Americans have been counting the cost of government wastefulness for years. Senator James Lankford started his own federal Fumbles series so we'd stop complaining and start working on bringing down the national debt. The 8th edition is out tomorrow morning. Here's an exclusive snapshot of some of the findings. It includes nearly $2 billion in assistance to Taliban leaders, $400 billion in pandemic payments that may have been made improperly or dispersed improperly. The report also highlighting that 17 out of 24 federal agencies were using 25% or less of their building capacity, even though $15.7 billion of taxpayer money was being used to maintain and lease those buildings.
And to help us recover this fumble, Senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. Senator, great to have you here. Let's get right into it. I mean, this isn't a fumble. This is a sacking of the American people and our tax dollars.
Well, it is actually. If you want to look at the federal government in the past couple of years, we've looked like the Kansas City Chiefs this past weekend. We did not perform up to stats. Is it too soon? Too soon? You listed several of them, but there's quite a few more on it. For instance, the President Biden's subsidies that he was doing for solar, $1 billion of that went to a Chinese solar company in subsidies. I don't know many American companies and many American taxpayers that would be very excited about that. We listed all of these out and said, this is something that needs to stop. This is an area that I've worked on for years. As you mentioned, we put 8 different federal fumble books out over the last several years. Joni Ernst has worked on this for years. Rand Paul has worked on this for years. Several of us have been pushing on this, and we are glad to have the help, continuing to be able to push this rock over. And the American people are seeing it, and they're frustrated, and they're yelling to the people in the backseat of the car, I'm going to pull this car over right now if we don't stop all this wasteful spending. And so let's get on with it.
And that's the thing. You definitely have sounded the alarm on this issue. People were certainly listening, but for some reason, there was no way to truly strip away what was going on and look under the hood. And now with DOGE and Elon Musk, the president is able to implement his agenda and show some of this wasteful spending to Americans. They're doing it across the board. I mean, they've taken on a lot. This feels different this time for some reason.
It does. It does feel different. And I would tell you, for all of us that have been talking about purchasing and wasteful and regulations that slow down the whole economy, folks have kind of shrugged for a while and said, that's just the way it is. It's the way government works. Everybody's trading stuff off. And now with President Trump coming in and pointing to this stuff, suddenly everybody's like, yeah, OK, that needs to stop. And so really grateful for all the attention that he's putting on this and what Elon Musk is doing to be able to point out the waste. And now step 2 is to be able to get it out.
Yeah.
You know, Senator, check me. Maybe I've missed this over the last 8 years or longer. Marijuana is still a controlled substance, right? That would be a yes.
Right.
OK, so why do we even need to talk about tax breaks for marijuana businesses? And I'll separate medical from use, general use.
Right. So when you get into marijuana businesses, that's true. But as you remember, President Biden was trying to declassify a lot of marijuana sales and bring it down to a lower level to be able to open this up. At that point, marijuana businesses could suddenly get a federal tax write-off for their operations when that's not so now. And so it just raises the question, at what point do Americans actually move to this is actually something that we're going to support on it and actually give a tax deduction for marijuana sales on it? Quite frankly, my state has opened up. We've got a lot of marijuana businesses that are there. We've seen also a lot of auto accidents and a lot of other reciprocal things. Oklahoma now is one of the top states for marijuana use for teenagers. That was not so just 6 years ago. And so we've seen some of the consequences. So we have to ask the question, is this going to be something we're going to give a tax write-off for? That's very different than saying this is going to be something that's just out there, that's going to be something states are going to do or not do.
I think you make a great point, and one of the arguments for the legalization of marijuana was to tax it, to make sure that the government took in some of that revenue, and yet they kind of, like everything else, just botched it all up.
Yep, it has been a big issue. And again, these are just all these different tax issues and different spending issues. I want to give you even one that's even funnier from that. We have different tax rules. If you're vodka, or if you add pickle juice to your vodka, now it's a cheaper tax liability for them. And I'm asking the question, how come pickled vodka actually gets a tax deduction other than just vodka on it? And so all of these different rules all demand us taking a second look at and saying, I don't know who got that into the tax code, but we've got to be able to look at all these aspects and ask some hard questions.
Yeah, you know, Senator, big picture in a short amount of time that we have, less than a minute left. Tax reform. I mean, what we're talking about here is clearing up a lot of mess in the tax code.
Yeah, we're talking about not raising taxes. That's one of the first things that's out there to say. The Democrats want to actually have the expiration of the 2017 tax code. That is, every single tax bracket would go up if we don't actually extend this. It would literally raise taxes $400 billion a year, and it would affect every single bracket. It's not just the top brackets, as they talk about in 2017, all brackets went down. And then we have to ask, how are we going to make sure that our companies are competitive? Whether a small business doing business all over the world or a large business, how do we make sure they're competitive so we're beating other companies and countries in the rest of the world with our tax code? That makes America strong, and it makes people move here to do business. After the Trump tax cuts in 2017, there were no more international companies buying American companies. Now American companies are buying international companies. We literally flipped the script after that tax code in 2017. We shouldn't go back on that.
Thank you, Senator James Lankford from the state of Oklahoma. Good to see you again, sir.